He's a Hall of Famer in every way. John McClain with us. GallerySports.com, 610 Houston, as you heard from Houston, 610 Radio, and also on numerous stations around the country. We're fortunate Tuesdays to have John. So, John, is the number one pick Carolina? There was a little bit of this thing fluttering out there about Will Levis, the odds or whatever. Is there any doubt in your mind who the number one pick will be when they open up the draft on Thursday?
No doubt in my mind that it's not going to be Bryce Young. Frank Reich today said there was a consensus in the organization about who they were going to take, and I'm betting if it's Will Levis, there wouldn't have been a consensus. That, Vegas is not wrong very much, and that was supposed to have started with an anonymous post on Reddit that he was telling people, and his family was spreading the word with people, and I just can't imagine Las Vegas odds makers would just go strictly with that. I remember when Baker Mayfield was number one pick. When they came out with it, we're like, what? No way he's going number one. It's a smokescreen. It's being leaked by people that don't want Cleveland to take him, and then Cleveland took him number one. Kyler Murray. Nobody would have taken Kyler Murray number one overall except Cliff Kingsbury when he was hired by the Cardinals because he had seen him in college. And so that came out at the last minute. If Will Levis went number one, it would be one of the biggest upsets in history. Now there's talk, the odds are he's going to go number two to the Texans, which truthfully, in my last mock draft, unless I hear something different, I'm having the Texans take Texas Tech defensive end Tyree Wilson with the second pick, and then doing what they have to do with the 12th pick, including possibly trading back up to get a quarterback. That makes no sense to me unless they deem those two edge rushers, Tyree Wilson and Will Anderson, in a class by themselves, because that is a huge need for the Texans. They have 35-year-old Jerry Hughes at one end and Jonathan Grenard in the last year of his contract, who's missed 11 games with injuries the last 2 years. It is a humongous need as his quarterback. And the one thing I cannot see is the Texans going into next season without a new starting quarterback. And if it's not a pick in the first round, maybe they're going to trade for Trey Lance because DeMeco Ryans, a new offensive coordinator, Bobby Slowick, were with him in both of his seasons with the 49ers.
John, it just would seem to be a tremendous risk to not take a quarterback at number two, though, because then everything after that is completely out of your control.
That's exactly right, and it is a risk, and it's also a risk to take one. The thing is, you can't force somebody to fall in love. You just can't. We all know that. That's the way it is in life. So if Bryce Young is the only quarterback they were in love with, then they shouldn't take a quarterback at number two. And I use it like, yeah, they wanted Bryce Young. He's like the new Mercedes. And so somebody else gets that new Mercedes, and you get stuck with a brand new BMW. So it doesn't mean you can't still get a quarterback you're in love with. It just might not be the one you were in love the most with.
John, your thoughts on the Aaron Rodgers trade to the New York Jets becoming official? Seems both sides got a little bit of what they wanted, but how did you feel like they both made out?
I've seen people call the trade highway robbery for the Packers. There's no way anybody knows that. You don't know what they're going to do with the draft choices. You don't know what Rodgers is going to do with the Jets. Was this past season a sign that he's hitting the wall? Fact is, most people think he just wasn't really interested. He knew he was going to be gone. The rift with the Packers had gotten so deep, and he has said before he kind of went off the rocker, that he wanted to play into his 40s. He's in good shape. He doesn't have a lot of injuries, nicks and bruises. So I could see him playing 2 or more years. And if he did, and he leads them to the playoffs and Super Bowl, then that will have been everything they wanted. And if the Packers can get some players to put around Jordan Love, and Jordan Love He's not going to be Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. At least we don't think so. But if he's still a good quarterback, then it'll work out good for the Packers too.
The NFL odds, Caesar's Palace and among others, have the Jets now moving in because of this trade into the top 5, number 5, for the odds to reach the Super Bowl. Is that too much, or is that how much value Aaron Rodgers brings to the table with what the Jets have now?
How many Super Bowls did he go to?
1.
He went to 1 in 2010. He's 6-7 in the playoffs. Since then, he's lost 3 NFC championship games at home, but all of a sudden people are saying he can take him to the Super Bowl. And I think he can take him to the playoffs. That division, man, oh man, the New England should finish in last place. And if Tua Tagovailoa stays healthy, and that's a big if because he's hurt every year, the Patriots ought to finish last, and 3 teams could make the playoffs. The problem they have is they play the AFC West and they play the NFC East. That is going to be really tough for the AFC East to play that kind of schedule. But it's going to be so much fun to watch the Jets. You know, they're going to get every possible national televised game, primetime game. Maybe we'll see them against the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. So I don't even know if they're supposed to play in Dallas or New York. But I'm just glad the trade's over so we don't have to hear about it. Now we're going to have to hear for the next 6 months is Aaron Rodgers taking the Jets to the Super Bowl.
John, do you think the Cardinals will bail out of that 3rd spot?
They most people think, Paul, that they have the worst roster in the NFL. And if that's the case, you need to get everything you can get to trade out of that because you need more than Tyree Wilson or you need more than Will Anderson Jr. The time you're good again, if you're good at all, then those guys are going to be working on their second contracts. And so I think they should trade down, maybe trade down twice, stockpile draft choices. They got new head coach, a new general manager. The owner, Michael Bidwell, has other issues to worry about besides winning and losing. And so I think that they would be wise to do that. In a perfect world for them, the Texans will take Tyree Wilson, and then they will trade with a team that wants a choice of 4 quarterbacks.
John, I've been fortunate. Paul has, Craig has the covered drafts. You've covered dozens of them, I'm sure. I remember the Laramie Tunsil story and the gas mask, and there's others as well. Is there one or two that, just from even back in the days when you first started covering the NFL, is there one or two NFL draft memories that come to mind?
I remember one guy had a wreck the night before. Can't remember who it was. And then ordinarily, if you have a wreck and you get hurt, you're supposed to alert teams. His agent did not do it. He got drafted. Then they found out. And then the team went ballistic, and the league went ballistic. It was just total dishonesty. I remember another one where a guy got pulled over and was getting arrested for DWI or DUI, and he was seen on the camera of begging him, "I'm going to get drafted tomorrow. You guys are going to ruin my chances of being drafted." And one of the cops said, "I think you're going to ruin yourself." And one of them mentioned to the other one, the guy's any good. He's still going to get drafted. And I remember one where the Buccaneers sent the wrong card to they wrote the guy in New York back when they were at the hotel, wrote down the wrong name and took it up and gave it to Commissioner Pete Rozelle, and he called out the player, Penn State guard Sean Farrell. And they're like, turned out that's not who they wanted. They wanted somebody else. Farrell ended up going to multiple Pro Bowls, and the guy they wanted bombed out.
John McClain, GallerySports.com.
I got one more good one. I'm sorry, David.
That's okay.
1998, it was at Madison Square Garden, the theater at Madison Square Garden. And to get to the interviews with the media, you were interviewed on the floor, and then you had to walk up the stairs. and you went right through the media, about 10 rows of media, and then you had the fans, the wild and crazy fans. And when Peyton Manning was walking up the stairs, they started a chant, Peyton sucks, Peyton sucks, Peyton sucks. And the next year, they got a new route to go to the interview room.
Yeah, it sounds like they should have, and it was a good move.
Oh, my Lord. You've covered so many of them. Have you covered more, I know more games, more drafts or more Super Bowls in your career?
More Super Bowls. I'll tell you another one involving LaDainian Tomlinson from Waco. He had his family there. I was watching, keeping an eye on him, and I saw his family, I'm guessing about 10 or 15 members, went out a side door before the draft. And I'm like, whoa, where are they going? So I followed them outside, and they went over and all stood around and hung on the Madison Square Garden sign to have their picture made, hanging on the sign that said Madison Square Garden. And one of his relatives, as I was walking back with him, said, we've never been anywhere like this.
He's right. LT, he was in town a couple of weeks ago visiting Midway ISD, some student athletes with Travius Hodges Tomlinson. Craig?
Yeah, John, I was just curious your thoughts on the new Rockets head coach and Ime Udoka. Obviously, last time we really saw him embroiled in a bit of a scandal. That cost him his job. Now getting back to the sidelines, your thoughts on what he's inheriting and the decision by Houston to bring him on board?
He paid his dues as an assistant coach. He worked for the Spurs, and Greg Popovich says great things about him. He goes to the Celtics. He's named head coach. He takes them to the finals in his first year. People were so excited. And oops, he has an improper relationship with an employee, and he ends up getting suspended and fired. Now, we didn't get any details about it that I remember, but usually if you have an improper relationship, you don't necessarily get fired. But he did. So you wonder, was there more there? Well, the Rockets vetted him with the NBA. They assured him he had done what he was supposed to do during his league suspension and after he was fired. Other teams were interested. Everybody thought he was going to Toronto to replace Nick Nurse. I thought Nurse or Frank Vogel, both of whom have won NBA championships, were going to get – one of them would have gotten the job because they just went through Stephen Silas, who'd never been a head coach, and he had the worst or the second worst team in the league 3 years in a row. And they stockpiled their team with number one picks. So when they hired him, we thought, wow, that's a surprise because he's only been a head coach 1 year. But I've read and listened and watched knowledgeable NBA people who said they think it's a great hire. Somebody was going to hire him, so it might as well have been the Rockets. And the only thing that could get better, the best player in the world, Victor Wembanyama, the French sensation, the Rockets have 14% chance to get him, just like the others with the best odds. And whoever gets Victor Wembanyama, whoever gets him is going to go global, like the Rockets did with Yao Ming. And we're as Phil McClain, the Rockets owner, said during the season, pray for Victor, which kind of led people to think, well, they're thanking for Victor. And you got to keep your mouth shut at a time like this. But if the Rockets could get him, that would be unbelievable. And, the Mavericks got a shot too. Wouldn't it have been something if the Mavericks, with a very small chance, because they tanked that last game to get in the lottery, Cuban Pete is going to pay his fine. If they ended up defying the odds and got Wembanyama after they did what they did.
Oh, it would be unbelievable. Houston has a history. What was it? Yao Ming, Ralph Sampson, of course, a high pick, Olajuwon as well. John, thank you very much. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, guys, and sick 'em.
John McClain, GallerySports.com, Sports Radio 610. When we